The frontier stretched wide and unforgiving. A raw expanse of wind-swept grass and open sky where survival was earned one hard day at a time. Storm clouds loomed often on the horizon, and danger rode just as freely as opportunity. It was Huron, a lonely stretch of unsettled land, that Oliver planted the final stake into the soil, and claimed a future he wasn't sure would claim him back. He straightened slowly, back aching from hours of labor, and surveyed the uneven line of wooden posts that marked the foundation of his home. They weren't pretty, but they were solid. Every mile west had tested him empty nights, frozen mornings, and the constant awareness that one wrong choice could leave him buried beneath the same earth he now stood upon. Still, as the sun dipped low and cast a golden fire across the plains, Oliver felt something rare: hope. The sound of hooves broke the quiet. Oliver turned, hand drifting toward his belt, and spotted a lone rider approaching through the tall grass. The woman rode with confidence, reins loose, posture steady. Dust clung to her boots, and a rifle was strapped across her back, unmistakable sign that she knew this land as well as any man. "You planning to build a house?" she called out. "Or just marking where it'll fall apart?" Oliver chuckled despite himself. "House, hopefully." She dismounted and stepped closer, eyes sharp and assessing the ground beneath his feet. "This land floods in the spring. You'll want the foundation higher." He studied her, unsure whether to take offense or gratitude. "Appreciate the warning." She extended her hand. Oliver. Her handshake was firm, honest. No hesitation. She looked around again, nodding slowly. "It's a hard place to settle. Most don't last a year." "I don't plan on leaving," Oliver replied. Trina smiled faintly. Neither did most of them. What should have been a brief exchange turned into an afternoon of work. Trina helped him haul lumber, showed him where the soil stayed firm after heavy rain, and shared dried meat by the fire as night crept in. Coyotes called from the hills, and the stars appeared in numbers Oliver had never seen back east. "I didn't plan on staying anywhere," Trina admitted quietly, staring into the flames. "But the road changes people." Oliver nodded. "So does the land." Days became weeks. The house took shape, boards rising against the endless sky. Trina returned often, sometimes bringing supplies, sometimes just her presence. When a violent storm tore across the plains, she stayed, helping Oliver brace the walls while rain slammed like fists against unfinished wood. They laughed when the structure held, soaked and breathless by the fire afterward, closer than either intended. The first real threat arrived one afternoon, with the sound of circling hooves. 3 riders lingered too long, eyes hungry, hands loose near their weapons. Outlaws. Oliver felt the weight of isolation, then how easy it would be to lose everything he was building. Trina stepped beside him, rifle raised without hesitation. "They won't take this," she said. "Not today." The riders eventually moved on, but the warning remained. That night, as the wind whispered through the gaps in the walls, Oliver reached for Trina's hand. She didn't pull away. On the frontier, where storms broke the weak and danger never slept, something stronger than fear was taking root. Love, born of shared labor, trust, and the will to endure. The frontier had a way of reminding people that nothing was ever truly safe. Just when Oliver began to believe the land might accept them, the skies darkened and proved otherwise. The storm came without mercy. Morning broke heavy and gray, the air thick with the smell of rain. Oliver was reinforcing the roof beams when the first thunder cracked overhead, sharp enough to rattle his bones. Trina emerged from the tree line, where she'd been checking traps, her expression already tense. "This won't be a passing rain," she warned. "We need to secure everything now." They worked side by side as the wind rose, tying down loose boards, stacking tools inside, and driving stakes deeper into the earth. Rain fell in hard sheets, turning dust to mud in minutes. The plains disappeared behind a curtain of water, and the house groaned as if testing its own strength. When lightning struck nearby, Trina flinched only slightly, then kept working, Oliver watched her with quiet admiration. She moved with purpose, unafraid, as though the storm was just another opponent to face head. By nightfall, the rain worsened. Water seeped through cracks in the walls, and the wind screamed like something alive. They sat inside by lantern light, damp blankets wrapped around their shoulders, listening to the fury outside. "I've lost homes to storms before," Oliver admitted. "Lost people to—" Trina's gaze softened. "That's why you fight so hard for this one." He nodded. "And why I'm glad you're here." The storm raged through the night, but the house held. When dawn finally arrived, pale and quiet, the land looked wounded. Trees snapped, grass flattened, earth scarred by runoff. Oliver stepped outside, heart pounding, and surveyed the damage. The house still stood. Trina joined him, mud-streaked and tired, but smiling. "Looks like the land tested you, and didn't win." They shared a moment of relief, before reality returned. A broken fence line, supplies washed away. Tracks in the mud that didn't belong to either of them. Oliver crouched examining the marks. Someone passed through during the storm. Trina's jaw tightened. Outlaws use storms to cover movement. They didn't have to wait long for confirmation. 2 days later, Oliver rode into a nearby trading post for supplies. The place buzzed with uneasy energy whispers, carried faster than the wind. 3 men robbed a freight wagon south of here, a shopkeeper muttered. "Killed 1 guard." Oliver's stomach knotted. He hurried back, unease riding with him the whole way. Smoke rose from the direction of the homestead. He urged his horse faster, heart pounding, only to find Trina standing in the yard, rifle in hand. The house was intact, but her expression was grim. "They came," she said. "Same men as before. I scared them off, but they'll be back." Oliver dismounted, anger flaring. "Then we don't wait for them." That night, they planned by firelight escape routes, hiding places, signals. The frontier demanded preparation, not hope alone. Oliver realized then that Trina wasn't just a partner in survival, she was a protector, just as fiercely invested as he was. "You didn't have to stay," he told her quietly. "You could have ridden on." Trina met his gaze, steady and unyielding. "I chose this. I chose you." Those words carried more weight than any promise. Days passed under constant tension. Every sound set nerves on edge. When the outlaws finally returned, it was at dusk. 3 riders, creeping toward the house, weapons visible. Oliver and Trina stood together, backs to the door, rifles raised. "This land isn't empty anymore," Oliver called out. "Turn back." The standoff felt endless. At last, the riders retreated, but not without a warning glance that promised unfinished business. When silence returned, Trina exhaled slowly. "This life will always fight us." Oliver reached for her hand. "Then we fight back together." Under a darkening sky, with danger never far behind, their bond deepened. The frontier tested them, not just with storms and shadows, but with the question of whether love could survive such relentless trials. For Oliver and Trina, the answer was becoming clear. The frontier did not forget those who challenged it, and neither did the men who believed strength was measured by what could be taken. After the outlaws' retreat, an uneasy calm settled over the land, a silence that felt less like peace and more like a breath held too long. Oliver rose. Before dawn each morning, rifle close, eyes scanning the horizon. Trina did the same. They spoke little during those early hours, communicating instead through glances and practiced movement. Survival had sharpened them into a single, watchful force. Yet life insisted on continuing. They repaired what the storm had broken. Oliver rebuilt the fence line, while Trina tended the garden she'd stubbornly planted despite the harsh soil. Green shoots pushed through the dirt, small but defiant. Each one felt like a promise. One afternoon, while Oliver was mending a post near the tree line, a shot cracked through the air. Pain exploded in his shoulder, spinning him to the ground. "Oliver!" Trina's scream cut through the chaos. She fired back without hesitation, her shots precise and fast. Hooves thundered away in the distance, one outlaw this time, testing their defenses. Trina rushed to Oliver's side, tearing fabric to assess the wound. "Bullet passed through," she said, voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "You're lucky." Lucky wasn't the word Oliver would have chosen. Blood soaked his shirt as Trina dragged him inside, working with calm urgency. She cleaned the wound, stitched it with hands that barely trembled, and stayed by his side as fever set in. For 3 days, Oliver drifted in and out of consciousness. He dreamed of endless plains, of storms swallowing the horizon, of Trina calling his name from somewhere just out of reach. Each time he surfaced, she was there, cool cloth on his brow, fingers wrapped around his hand, as if anchoring him to the world. On the 4th morning, he awoke to sunlight and the smell of broth. "You're not allowed to die," Trina said softly. "I didn't fight this hard for you to leave." He smiled weakly. "Guess I don't have much choice then." As Oliver healed, the cost of holding their ground became clear. Supplies ran low. Every trip for trade meant risk, and the outlaws were still nearby watching, waiting. "We can't live like this forever," Oliver admitted one night. "Always looking over our shoulders." Trina stared into the fire. "Running won't end it either." Before they could decide, fate made the choice for them. The outlaws came at dusk 5 this time. They surrounded the house, torches in hand, voices raised with cruel laughter. Oliver forced himself to his feet, pain flaring, but Trina stopped him. "You can't fight like this. I won't hide. You won't die either." She stepped outside alone, rifle slung over her shoulder, head held high. "This land is claimed," Trina called. "You'll leave." The men laughed. But their laughter faltered when townsfolk emerged from the trees. Neighbors Oliver hadn't known were watching. Farmers, trappers, settlers, armed with rifles and resolve. The frontier might have been vast, but word traveled fast when injustice threatened. Outnumbered, the outlaws retreated at last, disappearing into the dark. When the danger passed, Oliver realized something profound. They were no longer alone. Later that night, he took Trina's hands. "You saved my life." She shook her head. "We saved each other." The frontier demanded sacrifice. It took blood, fear, and certainty. But it also gave something rare, a chance to build not just a home, but a future defended by love and community. And though scars remained, Oliver knew one truth with unwavering clarity. Holding ground was costly, but losing Trina would cost him everything. Winter arrived early, carried in on cutting winds that stripped the plains of warmth and color. The grass turned brittle, the sky stayed low and gray, and the land that had tested Oliver and Trina with violence now challenged them with endurance. Snow fell hard and often. They sealed the house as best they could, stacking firewood high and rationing supplies. Oliver's shoulder healed slowly, stiffness lingering in the cold, but he refused to slow down. Trina watched him closely, worry etched into her expression whenever he pushed too far. "You don't have to prove anything," she told him one evening as he struggled to lift a log. "I do," Oliver replied, "to the land, to us." The frontier offered no mercy to weakness. Food grew scarce by midwinter. Trina's traps came back empty more often than not, and game tracks vanished beneath heavy snow. One morning, she didn't return by sunset. Oliver waited until nightfall, dread gnawing at him, then took his rifle and followed her trail into the hills. The wind howled like a warning as darkness closed in. He found her near a frozen creek, kneeling beside a motionless form, a child. The boy was no older than 10, clothes torn, skin blue with cold. Trina looked up, eyes glassy. He was alone. I think his family tried to cross the ridge. They carried the boy home, worked through the night, but the cold had already taken too much. By dawn, he was gone. They buried him beneath a bare oak, marking the grave with a simple wooden cross. No names, just loss. That grief settled deep, changing the quiet between them. Trina grew withdrawn, spending long hours staring across the snow-covered plains. Oliver knew the weight she carried it was the cost of caring in a land that took without apology. Weeks later, another storm struck worse than any before. The wind tore at the roof, ripping free boards and collapsing part of the structure. Snow poured in, fire extinguished, and chaos followed. They fought the storm until exhaustion claimed them. By morning, the house was half destroyed. Trina stared at the wreckage, shoulders slumped. Maybe this land doesn't want us. Oliver stepped beside her, his voice quiet but firm. It takes, but it also gives. We're still standing. She turned to him then, eyes wet. I'm tired of losing. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as the wind howled around them. So am I, but losing each other would be worse. They rebuilt, against lower, with less certainty, but more intention. Every nail driven was an act of defiance. Every shared meal, a victory. Spring crept in reluctantly, melting snow and revealing scars across the land. One morning, Trina collapsed while gathering water. Fear struck harder than any outlaw's bullet. Oliver carried her inside, panic shaking his hands. Days passed before she woke, weak but alive. The winter had taken its toll. Hunger, grief, and exhaustion had nearly claimed her. As she recovered, Oliver understood the truth he'd avoided. Love alone wasn't enough without care. When Trina finally stood beneath the warming sun, she reached for his hand. Promise me something. Anything. If this land ever demands more than we can give, we'll choose each other. Oliver nodded, emotion tightening his chest. Always. The frontier would keep taking. That was its nature. But in that promise, forged through storms and sorrow, Oliver and Trina found the strength to face whatever came next. Spring arrived, not with celebration, but with quiet determination. The snow retreated in muddy streams, revealing land scarred by storms, loss, and struggle. The house stood once more not perfect, not grand, but stronger than before. It bore the marks of survival, just like Oliver and Trina. They worked without rushing now. The frontier had taught them patience the hard way. Every fence repaired, every seed planted, carried intention. This land no longer felt like an enemy, it felt like a challenge they understood. One afternoon, a rider approached from the east. Oliver tensed, hand instinctively near his rifle, but Trina touched his arm. The man dismounted slowly, hat in hand. I'm from the settlement downriver, he said. We're forming a proper town, families, protection. We'd like you to join us. The offer hung heavy in the air. Safety, community, a chance at peace. That night, Oliver and Trina sat by the fire, listening to the wind whisper through the grass. We could leave, Oliver said quietly. No one would blame us. Trina stared into the flames, then shook her head. This place cost us too much to abandon. It shaped us. Oliver nodded. It made us. They sent word back with their answer at dawn. They would stand with the settlement when needed. The frontier was no longer about isolation. It was about connection, built slowly and fiercely. Years passed. The land softened under their care. Crops grew where there had once been dust. Laughter filled the house neighbors, stopping by, children running through the fields. The memory of outlaws faded into stories told by firelight, warnings of a harsher past. On a quiet evening, Oliver stood beside Trina at the edge of the property, watching the sun sink low. We survived, he said. Trina smiled, her hand finding his. We built something that lasts. The frontier still stretched endlessly beyond them, wild, unpredictable, and demanding. But love had proven stronger than storms, braver than fear, and more enduring than loss. Here, on this hard-won land, Oliver and Trina found forever. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.